I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is the Stoneopolis mod pack. So, jumping back into some more Stoneopolis, we have some work to do, as today we are going to get a little bit hot and sweaty. And that's because today we're jumping into the Molten Friends chapter of the quest book. And from the looks of it, things are going to get pretty steamy in here. So without further ado, we better get blasting. Okay, the puns are getting... Okay, yeah, I'll stop. Now, with all of that fun out of the way, I do want to talk about some automated things that I have set up. So, some things that I ended up doing was I ended up placing some of these routing nodes similar to how we have all of the other routing nodes set up. For example, the routing nodes that we have that are automating our altar, I also now have set up automating wood. And so this is a filter here that is actually just looking for the wood or the logs that are currently in here right now. And it's automatically pulling those logs out. And of course we have a master node, and then it is set up to an output node that is putting the logs over here. And then when that happens, they're getting sent into the furnace, which is then being turned into charcoal automatically. That's pretty straightforward. And now the way that I'm powering this furnace is something that I wish I would have realized a lot sooner. And I did mention it in the prior episode where I did talk about this, but it took till now for me to figure out exactly how these functioned. So the resource generators I could have been using all along to produce these the fuel for the furnaces, because these void chunks actually do work as fuel. So this ends up smelting at least one item every time that does an operation, which is just fine and perfect. But I could have been using it a lot sooner to automate the void nuggets in a more like a mega smelter way, like we have here. So I have 2 of these resource generators per hopper and also 2 for fuel, because these are pretty slow. They do produce one like every few seconds, I think, every 15 seconds. So I've basically cut it in half, and it's now producing like 7.5 seconds now for each of these, which is definitely fast enough to keep up and keep these completely filled. Now, between those 2 automations and also the automation that we set up inside of the garden cloches to be able to automatically produce lapis and redstone, we're now looking pretty good. I'm able to just make as much of this lapis stone alloy kind of as I want, because we're generating that. And since we're able to generate all of that material and also the void, we now have the ability to just make as much iron as we need. And this is going to be a necessity. Judging by this chapter, we're about to start making steel. Now, steel and power is all well and good, but if we can't make a bunch of clay without crazy amounts of tedium, then what's the point? Well, that is where it looks like this resource generator is going to come into play. This is another generator that can generate blocks for us. And it does show us in here some of the blocks it can generate, including terracotta, which is going to be fantastic because terracotta allows us to make all of our cables and wires to be able to transport power from one place to another. Now, before I can gain access to this block, it does look like I'm going to have to fight a blaze, or 2, or 3, or as many as it requires. And that's probably going to mean I probably should move my summoning block to a better location. I'm also going to pick up my fluid that we have setting here, and I want to place this in a spot that's not going to be as bad whenever we spawn something in. So how about in the corner for right now, I make a little bit of a trap room, like for example right here, and I can also place a trap door down on the side so I can easily access the fluid that is going to be down here. So what we'll have is our spawner block set right here, and I should be able to place some slabs in. So with that in place, I should be able to also place down a trap door. And so this will give me access to this block right here. And it might be better if I also lower this down one and maybe have it on the top half of this block. Yeah, that should work. So we'll put it here so that way the fluid doesn't actually flow past the trap door. It might have already had that sitting there, but you see what I'm trying to do. So there we go. So now we have that fluid directly underneath here, and we can start to summon. But it does look like this is actually going to require, from the looks of it, lava underneath this generator. And so we have to first make some lava fragments. So lava fragments says are used to summon lava monsters when they are on the summoning block. And these fragments do look like they come directly from the thermal shards, which we definitely have plenty of. And these thermal shards, well, we're going to have to replace the bottom down here with lava. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this up with my tin bucket and store that for later. And what we can do is use one of these thermal shards to just place down lava. And thankfully trapdoors well, they don't really catch on fire from lava, so we should be fine. Now, spawning the lava fragment is a different story, because I'm hoping this monster doesn't do anything crazy. Okay, so the lava monster seems to be pretty tame, and since we have a killing chamber, we should be fine. That guy does not look fine, though. Oh boy. And so I still, at this point, have no idea what the lava monster actually drops. And I don't know if we're able to see what the lava monster drops. I have no way of really seeing that, I don't think. Now, even though we can summon lava monsters, they're not actually our priority right now, apparently. We actually need to spawn in some blazes. And so I'm going to need a few sticks, and we can combine those sticks to make fire sticks. And according to the quest, it's like not the Amazon ones. Not made by Amazon. So yes, so now we're not making the ones by Amazon, but it does say blazes can be summoned by using those rods, I believe, by using the summoning block. And it does show on here, if we actually look up blaze, we can see the mob. And if we look at blaze spawn eggs, we can see the fire stick is actually what gets spawned here. Okay, perfect. So how many am I going to have to take out? I have no idea at this point, but I should be able to spawn a blaze. Ooh, and there we go. So with this little farm right here, we should be able to farm blaze rods. Now, we're not always going to get a blaze rod. If you kind of know how vanilla works, every time you kill a blaze, there's just a chance that you will actually get a blaze rod. And for example, there's the blaze rod. And I think it tells us right here, we can get 0 or 1, and it is affected by looting. So for right now, we're going to have to, well, use up these fire sticks. But I mean, they're pretty cheap, honestly, to be able to make. So we're going to be able to make as many rods as we want. Now, since we're on the subject of actually spawning in mobs, I should have done this a while ago too. Apparently, we can spawn in skeletons, and that's been one of the things on our quest that I've not been able to take out yet. So let me go ahead and grab that lava. And then I'm going to go ahead and place in the life essence. And now with that place, I should be able to use bone meal to summon a skeleton. And so now we should be able to take out the skeleton. And the cool part about the skeletons, right? And us completing that quest line. And then I go ahead and complete that framed. We've now completed that whole quest. What's cool about this is notice we get bone, right? And then we can actually increase and get more. And so we can just infinitely farm bone meal here because we always are guaranteed more. And so we just keep farming this over and over again. And I'm assuming eventually this might be a way, I don't know if we can automate it, but it definitely might be a way that we can farm XP and also farm skeletons. Because who doesn't love having bone meal so you can quickly grow some crops for food and things like that? So now I at least need 2 blaze rods in order to get to the next step. Also, I went ahead and added glass up here, which I think looks really nice. And yes, I'm gonna go ahead and exchange that back and spawn more of them. And we could definitely spawn more than one at a time and just start chomping away at them. And there we go. That is a very quick way of getting as many mobs as you want. Now, just keep in mind that this might not work so well for the endermites, as the endermites, I believe, can pass underneath that slab. I mean, I guess there's only one way to find out. And it doesn't look like it's actually moving, believe it or not. So, yeah. Oh, nope. Yep, they definitely will leave that block. But they don't see me, so they're not really attacking me. So that kind of works out. Now, from the looks of it, making this resource gen is very, very simple. I mean, once you have it unlocked, that is. So now that we have the resource generator, apparently we can put an inventory underneath it. And I wonder if a regular chest is going to work. My assumption is possibly not, as on solid blocks, you can't open a chest under here. So I'm thinking a barrel might be a better solution to this problem. So let's go ahead and grab ourselves just a simple barrel. And so the resource generator, the way that it's supposed to work is we're supposed to be able to place it down and then place it on top of an inventory. And then it can actually have a block that goes above it. Now it says not running, check the block above for it to be valid. But if the block is above it, that's supposed to be the block that I think it says is supposed to be its upgraded block. I mean, it does say that. It says speed blocks can be placed on top to increase the speed. Okay, resource generator. a block that, okay, we duplicate items. So I guess if we put a regular block above here, it's going to try and generate that block. Okay. And then the speed blocks go on top of the other block? I'm kind of confused by that one. I mean, this is what testing is all about, and I really love to do that. So I just right-clicked this, and it says checking for the block above, and now that block above is in that position. So does that mean that a block above that will generate the resources? Because it says by default, we should be generating this at like every 13 seconds, I think, is what its like base speed is, or every 11 seconds. But it does say that these acceleration blocks can be placed on top. Speed blocks can be placed on top to increase the speed blocks that are produced. And so, yeah, I'm really confused by that one. Because it does look like we have like, for example, this is obsidian, and we can actually physically make obsidian in the world. So obsidian could be placed on top and it would make it really fast. But I don't know, at this point, I really don't feel like faster is going to be that much of a deal breaker. So interesting. There is a guidebook, and I just took a look at the guidebook and look what it shows. Exactly what I kind of guessed is that obsidian block could go on top of the block that's actually being generated. So perfect. I guess we might as well make obsidian up there. And to do that is quite simple. We'll just place our lava and then place the water directly on top. And since we didn't have to hand place this, we can place this here, and this should now be generating quite a bit faster. It's supposed to do this now every 4 seconds. And it may be a little bit janky, but you know what? Even the pack says that's all right. So technically, this just unlocked a new block that we can produce indefinitely, which is great because terracotta is actually a really nice building material. And now that we have access to this and a bunch of dyes from our trees, ooh, we can make a lot of nice flooring. So now with the really fun part out of the way of spawning mobs, we can start to dive a little bit further into this quest line. And it looks like blaze powder is something that we can just make from our blaze rod. So we're still going to have to kill some more mobs, which is absolutely amazing. I'm down with that. But we're going to be using that to make blast bricks. So do we get any bonus from this? No. So we have to make everything out of this. And so to just do the maths very quickly, we're going to need 27 of these bricks right here, and each craft is going to give us 3. So we can divide 27 by our 3, and that's going to get 9 crafts out of this. So we're going to need 9 times 4, and that's going to tell us how many actual brick we're going to need, and that's going to be about 36, and same for the stone nuggets. Well, and that also means we're going to need 9 blaze powder. Now, while I'm waiting on some clay, I get to go a little bit crazy over here, and I'm just gonna spawn in a bunch of blazes. Oh my gosh, this is so loud. This might have been a poor decision, but boom! Dang, we can farm all of these all at once. It's so good. I don't know why I'm so excited about doing this, but it is what it is. It really is. Ooh, and we ended up getting one of those loot boxes that I actually mentioned last episode. Oh, we got melon slices. Oh, that's fantastic. Now we have ourselves some melon seeds. And you know what? I thought it was getting a little bit dark in here. It just feels kind of dark. And so I went ahead and made another glowstone spray can, because the last one we made, we ended up using it in a quest. And what I can do is on my stone crafting table, I can shift right click it and I can set the status to lit. And so now our base is lit. All right, don't kill me in the comments. All right, now with all of that out of the way, we can actually go ahead and start crafting all of these things up. So I do believe that if we go back to the brick, right, we are going to need the stone. I think that's the only thing that I just don't have in my inventory. And so we should have that. And now we should be all ready to go. Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead and put this together. We're going to have 4 of these just like that. We're going to place our brick in, and now we're going to be getting ourselves our blast brick. And like I said, we need 27 of these, just like our coke oven. This works basically the same way. However, this is going to be producing some steel, basically by using what our coke oven produces, which is coal coke. Now, in preparation for the new blast burner, or blast brick, which is going to be a blast furnace, enough of the blasting. I've blasted out this whole room here in preparation for this new furnace. So what I kind of want to do is, I think in the wall here, we can go ahead and put that right here. I'm going to go ahead and hollow out a space, just 1 block deep. And then same on this side. I actually want one on this side. And I should be able to put, for example, my coke oven here. And they're both built exactly the same way, by the way. So we're going to have this one in the wall, just like so. Please don't break on me, pick. Of course you did. But yes, we're going to have both of these in the wall, just like you see here. And I still have to go back and grab my hammer. But there we go. So a 3x3, but this one is going to be able to turn things into steel, which is, from the looks of it in the quest, going to be incredibly important. And so now with my absolutely not so janky setup here and here, I have plenty of void nuggets, plenty of charcoal, and watch, we should be able to pull out an entire stack of iron. So I'm going to grab a bit of this. And so now that we have that, I can put that back in, and we should be able to pull out an entire stack of void iron. And so we should be able to take our void iron, split it up, and then we just got to get this smelted. And then this is going to generate an entire stack of iron ingots. And so now things are getting a little bit easier. So this also means that we're probably going to need to kind of ramp up our coke production. And so at this point, we definitely are going to need more coal coke, because the coal coke, I believe, has a burn time. It says 16 items here, but if we go to the blast furnace, it does 60 seconds. And if we take a look at the conversion of our iron here inside of the blast, it says 6 seconds. Interesting. That's not the normal recipe, I don't think. So that's kind of interesting. So this only takes 6 seconds. So this means for one coke, this should be able to produce 6 steel, I think. Which, if I remember correctly, like I said, is not the typical recipe for immersive engineering. And sorry, I completely butchered that. It's actually 10 iron per 1 coke. So 10 of these should be able to be converted with 1. And like I said, that is not the normal recipe. I almost wonder if a block of coke has that similar recipe. So this is 600. And so if we had a block of iron that we were able to produce, is that also the same? So an iron block, it takes 54 seconds. And so in that case, an entire block can do 11 blocks of iron, turning it into steel. So let's go ahead and test the tin theory. I mean, judging by what JAI said, that's 100%. It should be the case. And yes, wow, that goes way faster than I am used to, because typically this takes quite a while. And it's also producing a bit of slag, which is going to be very nice. Now, you can hopper, I believe, out of this machine. I know that you can hopper out of this, and you can also pipe fluids out of this. I don't remember if you can with this. I think you might actually have to be on the next tier of blast furnace before you can actually start doing that. But I'm sure before long, we're going to be at that tier. So I just put 11 ingots in here. So if we have 1 ingot left over, we know that it is exactly 10 in the operation. And well, what do we do now? So now that we have steel, like, we should be able to start moving forward into a bunch of other cool mechanics and actually getting into power. And look right there, that's exactly 10 for 1 coal coke. That's amazing. So that definitely made steel a whole lot easier. And you might expect things like that to not be as easy as it is, but I mean, you got to keep in mind how grindy it can actually get, grinding out a lot of these resources early on. So out of all of the things that we've done thus far, this feels very rewarding. So now that we have this steel, according to the quest, it wants us to make a block of steel, and then it wants us to put that steel inside of a strainer filled with eroding water, but using an iron mesh specifically. So, okay, I'm fine to do that. We're going to go ahead and actually get a bonus back, which is not bad. It's like the quest is kind of rewarding us a little bit. I'm going to remove this strainer, and I do have an iron strainer over here. So for right now, I'm just going to reuse this one. And so I should be able to craft a block of steel. Okay, this is going to get us jump started, I think, in immersive machines from what it looks like. All right. And oh man, if only it would have just gave me another block of steel. So here we go. So we have the iron mesh. If I put this in here with the eroding water, there's also upgrade slots in here, by the way, which I've looked into. They're kind of expensive at the moment, but I'm sure in the future it's going to be a little bit better. But when we put this in, there we go. We got 7 plates this way. Okay. And we're going to get 5 in return. Now, it does branch off over here talking about power and also talking about windmills and water wheels. So these are good options, but there might be something that we work on later because they require a huge amount of space in order to actually get them up and running. And do they produce a lot of power? Well, not really. The water wheel, I believe, if I remember correctly, if you do this really convoluted setup with them, you can actually get it to produce about 88 RF per tick or FE per tick. And the windmill, depending on how high you are, is going to produce basically what this is producing over here, unless fully covered. And so those also take up a lot of space. And I believe they take up to like a 7x7. Both of them do take up a 7x7 space. So I think it might be a good idea for me to just continue making more of these that you see back behind this glass. So I think I'm going to end up making more of the thermoelectric generators because they're actually quite simple to make and they do produce a reliable amount of power and it is pretty scalable. So with that out of the way, we can start to work on other things. So that way we don't have to waste our resources on this just yet. And those other things are going to be steel rods. It looks like we make steel rods either in a mechanical press, which we can't make just yet. It looks like we have to make it in here for now. And this is going to have an 85% chance to make it. Okay, that's interesting. But this is leading us down into the metal plate press. Oh, so that's why we made our plates. So now that we have the plate press, we should be able to craft ourselves or build ourselves a plate maker, which is going to be our first heavy machine, I believe. Okay, there we go. So technically we have a line here. Now we're going to have to make steel rods, I do believe, because moving into this next step is going to require the metal press. So the metal press is the central part of this quest. And okay, so the metal press, if I remember correctly, we have to pull up the Immersive Engineering book. The metal press here looks like this. It's a pretty cool looking machine, but it is going to require steel scaffolding, 2 of them, 2 conveyor belts, and heavy engineering block, a piston, and we're also going to need a redstone engineering block. And which it shows you right here, all of the individual blocks you're going to need. And so this actually just unlocked a ton of new possibilities for automation because we can craft ourselves conveyor belts now. And conveyor belts are going to be required for this particular process, but some steel nuggets and then a little bit of iron and a little bit of redstone grants us conveyor belts. And these are pretty cool. So in their own right, of course you can place them down, but what's really neat about them is you can actually have items go directly into them. So you can hopper onto these, I believe, but if I go ahead and toss this belt onto here, it's going to auto insert into inventories. So keep that in mind. That is something to definitely note. And there's a lot of other utilities to this. For example, an extractor conveyor belt, tons of filtering options with the item routers and splitting capabilities, redstone, going vertical, all kinds of stuff. You can cover them up so they act more like a pipe. And then you have the hoppering belt. So with all of that information, that is going to be a nice addition to our arsenal of things we can use to automate. Now, this is where things are going to get a little bit more complicated because we're going to need a bit more steel, I think. Continuing on, I'm going to actually make one more of those. So now we have 24. So that's 1 full ingot worth. But making scaffolding and all the other ingredients, like the engineering block, this one is quite easy as well. We just need to use our steel. And so we have our redstone engineering block. That's out of the way. The steel one, however, requires steel sheet metal. So we have 8 right now. And so I think this is enough to make enough sheet metal because we're going to need 1 of these. That produces 4. So we're just going to need 1 set. So I'm going to save that for now. So now we have our sheet metal, but these also require steel mechanical components. Each one of these components cost 2 steel. So, and also copper and the lapis stone alloy. Okay, so if we know how much we're going to need for this, and we're going to get 4 of them, that's 4. So that's going to be 2, 4, 6, 8. So 8 steel just for that. We're also going to need a steel rod here, and it's not 100% chance of getting a rod out of that. And then we're going to need 3 rods here. So we need 4 total rods, and we should be able to make this. Believe it or not, a piston requires a steel rod. I think, yeah, this is not just like anything. Okay, yeah, it is a steel rod for a piston. Okay, so that means if we do 4 here and we get incredibly lucky, we might have enough because we should get 6 scaffolding out of this whenever we do this operation. Come on, this is where it feels like gambling. Yeah, because all of the time for the resources. I mean, honestly, steel hasn't been that bad. And so my luck wasn't 100% on my side. I did have to add in another one. So technically these 4 rods took 5 steel. And that's a gamble we're going to have to make for right now until we have the press. Thankfully, though, we shouldn't have to make that decision for long, because this should give us the ability to make the press. Okay, so things are about to get very pressing. I had to throw that out there. All right, so the only thing left is to make the heavy engineering block, which just requires these mechanical components. Oh, and boy, does it hurt to pull these out. Oh, because they just feel so expensive right now. There we go. We've now completed the whole chapter. Well, it feels like we've completed the whole chapter, but technically we only completed the things that were required because these are actually optional, which is a good thing because I don't really think I want to make them right now. So after all of that crafting and a nasty inventory later, we can go ahead and make ourselves the heavy engineering block. Ah, very nice. And that now is everything needed in order to make our press. So let's go ahead and just set up our press right over here. So that way we can tap into our power and we can get this linked up. And this actually doesn't take too much to build. And if you use the engineer's book, you can really define and see what everything does, especially if you pause it. You can see all of the different layers, just like so. And yeah, it's very, very simple to build. However, the only hard part is placing in the piston the correct way. So let's go ahead and set this up. So we're gonna have a block here and a block here. We're gonna place down our engineering block right here, the redstone control. And then we're going to have a piston that is going to be placed here. And I think we can rotate this. I do not remember. And then we're going to have a block on top. Now, our conveyor belts actually matter what orientation they're going in. So I think I want the orientation to go from left to right, because I typically like having the input on the left and the output on the right. And so with that spinning that way, we should be good. And yes, notice the piston, by the way, not correct. So what you have to do is kind of squeeze in here and get it to face down. And then you can click this with your hammer right in the center, and this produces the metal press. And now we do have our metal press mold. And so we can actually just click that up here, and that is going to put that mold in here. And we should be able to get it out by shift right clicking. And so just like that, we now have it out. Now the power goes on the top. So I am going to go ahead and put the power onto the top. And so now if I go ahead and power this up, the first thing I actually want to press is going to be an iron ingot. And it seems kind of weird, but the iron ingot is actually going to unlock the ability for us to make the engineer's blueprint. And this offers us the ability to make a bunch of different press molds, including the one for the rods, which is going to make things a lot easier. And we can also make them for the copper wires. So all of that in combination is just going to make things a little bit more effective for us, right? So we'll be able to save more resources and be able to make more of the awesome infrastructure here. So I just need a single iron and we can kind of put this into action, right? We already have our mold on here. So just by tossing this on here, it's going to press it off and then it's going to toss it off. Now, if I had an inventory here, it would go directly into the inventory. And so with that, I think I have my lapis stored in my chest over here. So I'm just going to grab that. We just need 3 of them. And voila. If we place this in, I think like this, and this on top. It's crazy how I have these kind of memorized. We now have ourselves another blueprint. And so I can go ahead and take this blueprint out. And then we can put this one in. And we have access to all of these. So we're going to need to use our wire cutters that we actually got an episode ago, a few episodes ago. And I don't know, I think I have them in my tools chest. I tried to keep everything organized in here because we just don't have access to any sort of inventory mod that is super helpful at this point. But there we go. And then this is going to require 3 steel plates to produce any of these individual molds. And so we should be able to now accept that because we now have this up and running. And it does say right here, used to make gears, rods, and plates. So it definitely wants us to make a gear one, which there's the gear one right here. And then we also have the rod, and then we already have the plate. So we should be good, but I'm definitely going to make the wire one as well, I think. Actually, what's kind of odd is I almost think that the recipe that is used to make those wires, I want to say that this is actually more effective at making the wires than this recipe is. Because this, we get still a couple of copper nuggets left over in the craft, whereas this one would consume the same amount of ingots to only produce 4, whereas this would produce about 4.5 cables, meaning we have leftover nuggets. I mean, is that getting too technical? I mean, probably. It could save some time in the future, but it's just something to note. And well, at this stage, we have now entered into a new age of this pack. And I would say this is the industrial age, and there's going to be a lot more multi-block machines that we're going to be building very, very soon. This right here is just our introduction into our first kind of industrial machine. That's if you don't count the garden cloches. We'll just ignore those. And now with that, I have a lot more resources to sort of grind out, and I hope you've enjoyed thus far. And of course, if you have, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give this video a huge thumbs up, as I would really appreciate it. And of course, now it's time to thank the amazing supporters of today's episode. And that amazing thanks is going to go out to none other than Snapshot. Thank you, by the way, so much for your amazing support by choosing to support me over on the Discord and becoming a Discord premium member. And not only that, but gaining access to the supporter servers and world downloads and many other perks that we have over on the Discord. So definitely, guys, if you're interested in that and choosing to support this content that I put out almost daily, be sure to check that out over on the Discord. You can find it linked down in the description below, or you can go to discord.gg/ChosenArchitect and join the amazing crew today. And with that, as all of this madness continues to progress on, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye!